Whispers coming out of every corner of the internet are saying that Claressa Shields, the fearless world champion who just weeks ago sat down glowing, radiant, unshakable, telling the whole world she was ready to have this man's baby, has been walking straight into the exact trap the woman she called jealous, bitter, and irrelevant was screaming about from day one. And sweetheart, less than 24 hours after that soft-lit, dreamy, love-drunk interview aired, cheating rumors about Claressa Shields and Papoose detonated across every timeline, every blog, every group chat, every corner of Black Twitter at the exact same second, like somebody hit a button, like somebody was waiting, like somebody had that receipt loaded in a chamber for months. Reportedly, family, reportedly. But the timeline is doing the talking, and it is talking so loud right now that even the people who defended Claressa Shields for the last year are sitting down, shutting up, and rewatching every single warning Remy Ma ever gave them. Welcome back, cousins, to the couch. Pour yourself something strong. Because what you are about to hear is not a story about cheating. It is a story about a pattern this man has been running his entire adult life, and Claressa Shields, one of the smartest, most disciplined, most decorated women in modern sports, walked into that pattern with her arms wide open and her ears sealed shut. Everything on the table today comes from publicly available statements, from interviews still sitting on YouTube with millions of views, and from a viral confrontation the entire culture has already seen with its own eyes. But when you line it all up, when you put the interview beside the leaked screenshots, when you put Remy Ma's warnings beside the collapse, the picture that emerges is uglier than anybody wanted to admit. Let me set the scene, because context is everything. Late in 2024, Papoose and Claressa Shields went public. It was messy from minute one, because Papoose was, and reportedly still is, legally married to Remy Ma. Remy did not stay quiet. Remy did not do the polite, dignified, wounded wife silence the internet expected her to do. Remy warned Claressa Shields loudly, publicly, repeatedly, and with receipts. And every single time she opened her mouth, Claressa Shields dismissed it. Called it jealousy. Called it bitterness. Called it a bitter ex who could not handle losing. Well, cousin, sit down. Because this week, the exact prophecy Remy Ma spoke into that microphone came knocking on Claressa Shields' front door, and it did not knock politely. It kicked the door in. Rewind with me for a second. Watch the interview clip again in your head. Claressa Shields sitting there, glowing, radiant, world champion, undefeated, poised, talking about slowing down her career, talking about starting a family, talking about building a whole life with this man. She was not performing. That is what makes this so cruel. She genuinely, wholeheartedly, with her entire chest, believed she had finally found the real thing. She said she was going to have a baby. She said she was ready. And baby, listen closely, because within a single 24-hour window after that interview aired, cheating rumors dropped on every gossip page, every blog, every messy timeline at the same synchronized moment. Somebody was waiting. Somebody knew that interview was dropping. And somebody timed the demolition of it down to the minute. The contrast was not just shocking. It was surgical. It was cold. The words were still fresh on everyone's phone screens when the allegations exploded, and the same audience celebrating Claressa Shields 10 hours earlier was dragging her 10 hours later. And you already know the line that showed up in every single comment section within the first hour. Say it with me. You lose them the same way you got them. It is cliché. It is overused. It is tired. But it is accurate. And when it is accurate, it is accurate. There is no polite way around a truth that keeps writing itself in the same handwriting. Here is the part that genuinely turns the stomach. Reportedly, Papoose got with Claressa Shields while still legally married to Remy Ma. And now, allegedly, he is already entertaining someone new while supposedly building a future with Claressa Shields. This is not history repeating itself, sugar. History never stopped. The book never closed. The first chapter simply had a different woman's name written on the cover. Same author, same publisher, same plot, same predictable third act, only the leading lady changed between drafts. Reportedly, family, reportedly. But you can only say coincidence so many times before the word starts to lose meaning. Let me walk you through what Remy Ma actually said, because 90% of the internet clipped 10 seconds of her going off and never sat with the substance. And the substance, when you hear it, is devastating. Not messy. Not petty. Not scorned. Devastating in the way real testimony is devastating, the kind that makes you stop chewing your gum and put your phone down flat on the table. Remy sat there and laid it out with the calm precision of a woman who had already lost everything she was going to lose. Papoose, she said, was not chasing love. He was chasing infrastructure. He was chasing security. He was chasing a successful woman he could attach himself to like a life raft, because it worked in his favor. No income, she said, except what he was claiming as a percentage, because he was your man. The career failures. The gambling. The pattern that everyone in the industry had been whispering about for a decade but nobody had the guts to say on camera. And then the question that has been sitting in every single comments section for 6 months. Why, Claressa Shields, a world champion, a self-made icon, a woman who fought her way out of Flint, Michigan, out of poverty, out of everything a black girl in America is supposed to be defeated by, why are you attaching yourself to a man twice married with nothing but a discography that has not charted in 15 years and a habit that reportedly eats through money the second it hits his hand? The gambling detail keeps getting buried in this story, and it should not be buried. When a person has a gambling problem, sweetheart, they do not just gamble money. They gamble relationships. They gamble trust. They gamble loyalty. They gamble the people closest to them, because in the gambler's mind, everything is currency, and everything can be spent, and everything can be replaced when the next hand is dealt. Claressa Shields did not just fall in love with a man. If Remy Ma is telling the truth, and every receipt so far says she is, Claressa Shields fell in love with a man whose entire operating system is built on risking what he already has for the possibility of what he does not. That is not a partner, family. That is a variable. Wait until you hear this part, because this is the moment my jaw literally hit the floor. Remy Ma alleged, and she stood on it 10 toes down, that Papoose fell asleep on the phone with Claressa Shields while lying in Remy Ma's own bed, in Remy Ma's own house. He did not go home to a hotel. He stayed in his wife's house, on the phone with his girlfriend, until sleep took him. Remy Ma found the messages on his phone while he was unconscious. And when Claressa Shields heard Remy Ma's voice come through the receiver in the background, Claressa Shields hung up. Immediately. No confrontation. No demand. No, put him on the phone right now. Just silence and a click. That click, cousin, is one of the loudest sounds in this whole story, because it is the sound of somebody being caught and refusing to admit it. And Remy Ma used that exact moment, that exact click, to say one of the sharpest, truest sentences ever spoken in this entire saga. Claressa Shields is not as fearless as she likes the world to believe. Because a truly fearless woman, cousin, does not hang up when she hears the wife's voice on the line. A woman who is secure in her position stays on that phone. A woman who is secure in her position demands answers right there in the moment. The hang-up, sweetheart, said everything Claressa Shields spent a year telling the world was not true. The hang-up was the confession that no camera in the world would have gotten out of her. Being in pain does not make somebody a liar. Being angry does not make somebody a liar. Sometimes pain strips the filter off, and what comes out is the truest thing that woman has ever said in public. Remy Ma was hurting. Remy Ma was telling the truth. Both of those things are allowed to exist in the same body at the same time, and every single person in the comments section pretending Remy Ma being emotional means Remy Ma being wrong is showing us who they are. They are showing us that they think a woman only qualifies as credible when she is calm. That is not journalism, family. That is misogyny with a filter on it. Now, real talk, though. Here is the detail I was not emotionally prepared for. The detail almost nobody else is touching, because it is the most personally devastating thing in this entire saga. Remy Ma alleged, and she stood on this with her chest, that behind closed doors, Papoose was calling Claressa Shields unattractive. Unappealing. Not his type. Privately. To his wife. About the woman he was supposedly leaving everything for. Sit with that. Sit with it for a full 10 seconds before you scroll. On Instagram, it was, my queen. On camera, it was, the love of my life. In captions, it was public affection performed for millions of scrolling thumbs. And then, come to find out, behind closed doors, allegedly, he was calling Claressa Shields unattractive to the woman he was supposedly done with. You do not do that unless the public version is theater. You do not do that unless the caption is a costume. You do not do that unless every single, my queen, post was a strategy, and a strategy, sugar, is not love. A strategy is management. He was managing 2 women. He was managing a public image. He was managing a wife he had not divorced, a girlfriend he had not committed to, and reportedly, a new woman already stepping into rotation. He begged Remy Ma to stay quiet, sources say. He told Remy Ma to let the noise ride, sources say. He wanted to manage both situations from behind the curtain while 2 women were burning publicly for a fire he lit and walked away from. That is not love, family. That is choreography. And Papoose has been rehearsing this dance for years. Nobody accidentally becomes this precise. This is muscle memory. Anyway, moving right along, because here is where the story gets even messier. Rumors are now spreading that Papoose is already, allegedly, entertaining someone new. Someone younger than Claressa Shields. The internet did what the internet always does, went straight into forensic mode. Screenshots pulled. Timelines dragged out. Old interviews resurrected. Comment threads turned into evidence boards. And the question everybody is now asking is not just whether he has moved on quickly. The question is how long this had already been happening while Claressa Shields was planning a family with him. Because a man does not pivot from one woman to another this smoothly unless the pivot was already rehearsed in the wings, cousin. Look at the full architecture of this thing. Remy Ma, 4 years. Then Claressa Shields, while still legally married to Remy Ma. Now, allegedly, a new woman, while supposedly building a life with Claressa Shields. Same cycle. Same system. Same man. Different woman stepping onto the platform each time while the previous one is still holding the receipts, still asking what happened, still asking why the man she loved is unrecognizable in the rearview mirror. Every relationship in Papoose's life has ended with a woman staring at her phone at 3 in the morning wondering how the same man who once wrote her love letters can now look at her like a stranger. Ask Remy Ma. She has been that woman. And now, Claressa Shields is stepping into the same exact chair. And the money conversation keeps rising back to the surface no matter how many times people try to bury it under love story language. Claressa Shields confirmed with her own mouth that she covers his mortgage. That she covers his car. That she covers his flights. She said it herself, on a podcast, smiling, treating it like proof of her devotion. Baby, that was not proof of devotion. That was a receipt. So the question sits there like a rock in the middle of the living room. Who is funding his lifestyle? His label? A label with no charting records in a decade? His music career? A career that peaked before TikTok existed? When a man's entire described income is a percentage, because he is your man, sweetheart, that is not partnership. That is an arrangement. And arrangements, cousin, expire the exact moment a better one walks through the front door. The pattern does not lie, even when the people inside the pattern do. And the pattern in this case, family, is loud enough that it should have set off every smoke alarm in Claressa Shields' mind. But love is a strange kind of drug. Love does what smoke inhalation does. It fills the room slowly, quietly, and by the time you notice you cannot breathe, you are already too disoriented to find the door. Let me zoom all the way out for a second, because this story stopped being a cheating story a long time ago. This is a story about control. About image. About who gets to write the final draft of what actually happened. Claressa Shields walked into this genuinely. The interview proves that. She was not scheming. She was not calculating. She was not running a game. She was a woman who thought she had finally, after years of being everybody's fighter and nobody's chosen one, found something soft and real to come home to. And she got caught in a system this man has been operating his entire adult life, long before Claressa Shields' name ever entered the conversation. The receipts were always there. Remy Ma handed them to Claressa Shields publicly, loudly, with the microphone hot and the cameras rolling. And Claressa Shields chose love over logic every single time. Called Remy Ma jealous every single time. Called it bitterness every single time. Called it irrelevant every single time. And now, sweetheart, Claressa Shields is standing in the exact place Remy Ma said she would be standing, one heartbreak deeper, and one prophecy louder in her ear than she can silence. She called Remy Ma jealous. And then the rumors hit. She called Remy Ma bitter. And then the pattern showed. She dismissed every single warning. And baby, the ending looks exactly like what Remy Ma described from the very first press conference. Claressa Shields did not just walk into gossip. She walked into a blueprint. A blueprint this man has been drafting since he was in his 20s. And the part that gets me, the part that keeps me up at night when I think about it, is that Claressa Shields had a front row seat to how the last chapter of this blueprint ended. She watched it happen to Remy Ma in real time. She watched the marriage crumble in public. She watched the woman get dragged through headlines. She watched the ending. And Claressa Shields still convinced herself that the story would end differently just because her name was on the cover this time. That is the tragedy, family. Not the cheating. Not the rumors. Not the younger woman circling in the wings. The tragedy is a brilliant, hard-working, self-made world champion looked at a warning that came with footnotes, sources, screenshots, and a survivor testimony, and Claressa Shields still bet on the man instead of the math. Claressa Shields, whose entire career is built on cold reading opponents, on watching footage, on studying tape, on understanding patterns, did not apply a single one of those skills to the man sleeping next to her. She turned off the same instincts that made her the greatest female boxer of her era the second she stepped out of the ring and into his living room. Now, let me talk to you about something Remy Ma said that has been ringing in my ears since the day she said it. Remy Ma described Papoose as a man who does not create, he attaches. He does not build, he leases. He does not partner, he positions. Every woman in his life has been treated less like a wife or a girlfriend and more like a platform. Remy Ma was the platform when Remy Ma was the biggest female rapper walking. Claressa Shields became the platform the moment Claressa Shields became the most decorated female boxer in modern history. And now, allegedly, the next platform is being scouted while Claressa Shields is still on the record talking about building a nursery. If you look at Papoose's public timeline, the interviews, the freestyles, the podcast appearances, the aggressive rebrand attempts, one thing jumps off the screen. Papoose has been fighting for relevance for a decade, and every time relevance slipped away from him, a woman with her own name, her own income, her own audience, and her own hard-earned reputation walked into the frame. That is not coincidence, sweetheart. That is casting. And casting requires a director. And the director in this movie has been Papoose, sitting quietly behind the camera, choosing his next leading lady the same way a producer chooses a stock ticker, based on projected return, not personal chemistry. Come to find out, some of the same industry insiders who tried to warn Remy Ma years ago were saying the same thing to Claressa Shields' team from the very beginning. Told her people to slow down. Told her people to look at the timeline. Told her people to look at the finances. And the answer that came back, reportedly, was that Claressa Shields was in love and Claressa Shields was going to make her own decisions and Claressa Shields did not need anybody telling her about a grown man. Fine. Everybody has the right to make their own decisions. But nobody has the right to be surprised when the decision hands you back the exact outcome you were warned about, wrapped in a bow, delivered on a Tuesday. The interview will haunt her. It has to. Because in that interview, Claressa Shields talked about slowing down her career for this man. Slowing down a career she bled for. Slowing down a career that was built on nights in the gym while other girls were at prom, mornings on the road while other kids were sleeping, weeks in camp while other 20-somethings were living. She was ready to slow all of that down. To have a baby with a man who was allegedly calling her unattractive when the microphones were off. That is not a scandal, family. That is a wound. And that wound is going to take longer to heal than any bruise she has ever taken inside the ring. Because bruises fade. Betrayal reprograms. Let me tell you what nobody in this story is really talking about. Papoose is not the villain of a love story. Papoose is a symptom. Papoose is what happens when a certain kind of man realizes that fame, connection, and access are more valuable than talent, effort, and character. And once that switch flips in a man's head, sweetheart, he does not go looking for love anymore. He goes looking for a launch pad. Every woman he meets after that switch is not a partner. She is a runway. And every relationship he enters is not a bond. It is a boarding call. Remy Ma was the first runway. Remy Ma sat on the biggest platforms rap could offer, and she brought this man onto every one of them. When Remy Ma's platform started to shrink, reportedly, so did his interest. Claressa Shields became the second runway the moment Claressa Shields' face was on every sports network in America. And now, if the whispers are accurate, the third runway is being scouted from a distance while Claressa Shields is on the podcast circuit talking about babies. The industry knows how this ends because the industry has watched it end a dozen times before, with different names, in different cities, with the same man's hand on the steering wheel. The audio does not lie. Watch the interviews. Not the ones where he is glowing at her. Watch the ones where she is talking, and his eyes drift. Watch the ones where she is emotional, and his shoulders do not move. Watch the body language experts who have been dissecting this couple frame by frame for the last 6 months. Every single one of them has been saying the same thing, and every single one of them has been laughed out of the comment section by fans who did not want to hear it. Well, cousin, the fans are quiet now. The comment sections have shifted overnight. And the same people who were defending Claressa Shields yesterday are now retweeting Remy Ma's warnings with new captions. Real talk, though. This is not a moment to gloat. This is a moment to grieve. Because a woman who fought harder than anyone in her sport, who broke barriers, who carried her city, who represented her country, who did everything right in her career, allegedly gave her heart to a man who was allegedly calling her ugly behind her back. There is nothing satisfying about that. There is nothing entertaining about that. There is only the ugly, unglamorous truth that intelligence and love are two completely different neural networks in the human brain, and being brilliant at one does not protect you from being blind in the other. The smartest women fall the hardest, because they have spent so long solving problems that they refuse to believe a man could be a problem they cannot solve. Now, some of you are going to write in the comments that Claressa Shields brought this on herself. That she knew he was married. That she participated in the destruction of a marriage. That there is no sympathy in the karma economy. And I hear you. I do. There is a version of this story where Claressa Shields is not the sympathetic figure. That version is also real. Both things can be true. She can be a woman who did wrong and a woman being wronged in the same breath. Life does not sort us into clean categories. And if we insist on demanding perfect victims before we allow ourselves to feel anything, we will end up feeling nothing, ever, about anyone. But here is the thing. Even if you have zero sympathy for how she got into this, even if you sit firmly in the "she knew what she was signing up for" camp, the story is still worth studying, because the story is not really about Claressa Shields. The story is about a template. A template men like Papoose have been running on women for generations. And every time a smart, capable, successful woman walks into that template thinking she is the exception, the template wins again. That is why Remy Ma was not just fighting for herself when she went on the record. Remy Ma was fighting for every woman who was going to look at Claressa Shields' engagement announcement and think, see, it can work. It cannot work. Not this version. Not with this man. Not with this system in place. And that is the message Remy Ma was trying to broadcast on every frequency she could find, and Claressa Shields kept the radio switched off. Turns out the signal was crystal clear. Turns out the receiver was the one that needed replacing. Come to find out, in the last 48 hours, more people from Papoose's inner circle have started to talk. Reportedly. And what they are saying lines up with everything Remy Ma alleged from the beginning. Old girlfriends are resurfacing on TikTok. Old collaborators are dropping cryptic tweets. Old industry veterans who never spoke publicly about him are suddenly liking posts and reposting videos and dropping single-word comments that speak volumes. The dam is breaking, family. And when a dam breaks in a story like this, the water only flows in one direction. Watch the next 2 weeks carefully. Watch who unfollows whom. Watch which brands quietly pull their partnerships. Watch which podcasts suddenly cancel his scheduled appearances. Watch which magazine covers get postponed. These are the tea leaves of a public reputation crumbling in real time, and once the leaves start falling, sweetheart, they do not stop until the tree is bare. I keep going back to that interview clip, because I cannot get it out of my head. Her voice was soft. Her eyes were tired but hopeful. She used the word "finally" 3 times in 5 minutes. Finally slowing down. Finally settled. Finally happy. And the word "finally," family, is the most dangerous word a woman can use about a man like Papoose, because "finally" is the word women say when they are done fighting for themselves. Finally is surrender dressed up as peace. Finally is the sound a warrior makes right before she puts down the sword. And she put down the sword, and the man she put it down for reportedly picked it up and used it against her the same night. That is why the internet is so shaken. That is why the timelines are so raw. That is why every gossip page ran the story at the same time. Because we all saw the interview. We all heard the finally. And we all watched, in real time, over a period of less than 24 hours, a woman's entire narrative of romantic redemption get set on fire. Let me pause here and say something a little heavier, because I think it needs to be said. There is a version of this conversation where we make Claressa Shields the punchline. Where we laugh. Where we tweet, not surprised, and move on. But sweetheart, if you have ever loved somebody past the point of reason, if you have ever ignored a warning because you thought the warning was jealousy, if you have ever put your whole chest into a man who was quietly running a spreadsheet on you the whole time, then you are Claressa Shields in some part of your history, and you know it. This is not a story about a boxer. This is a story about every woman who has ever chosen to be the exception and found out, too late, that exceptions were never being handed out. Only receipts. Only receipts. And let me be crystal clear about one more thing, because I do not want any confusion in the comments. This is not a Papoose slander piece. This is a Papoose pattern piece. Slander is when the accusation has no evidence. Pattern is when the same evidence keeps writing itself in different women's handwriting. Remy Ma's version. Claressa Shields' version. Now, allegedly, the newest woman's version. 3 different narrators, 3 different eras, 1 identical arc. That is not slander, family. That is a shelf full of matching books with the same author's name printed on the spine. Because here is the thing about villains, cousin. Real villains do not have to keep telling you they are the good guy. Real villains do not have to keep begging their exes to stay quiet. Real villains do not have to hide their behavior in private while performing love in public. The man who has to manage his image this hard, this often, in this many directions, at this speed, sweetheart, that man is a full-time public relations agency with a body attached to it. And the body has been running the same PR strategy on a rotating cast of women for over a decade. Let me remind you of a moment that got lost in the noise. When Remy Ma first went public with her side of the story, one of the very first things she said was that Claressa Shields put her phone number on a page with 10 million followers. Publicly exposing Remy Ma's contact. Broadcasting to millions of strangers that she and Papoose were together. That was not a small moment, family. That was a declaration of war. And Remy Ma responded like any woman who has ever been publicly humiliated by her husband's mistress responds. She lit the entire timeline on fire. And she did it with receipts. The receipts are the reason this story never went away. The receipts are the reason Remy Ma's warnings kept getting recycled. The receipts are the reason every time Claressa Shields tried to close the topic reopened itself with fresh evidence. You cannot outrun receipts, sweetheart. You can outrun opinions. You can outrun rumors. You can outrun tabloids. But receipts, cousin, receipts are the one thing on this earth that keeps arriving at your address no matter how many times you change the locks. Let me talk to you about Claressa Shields for one more minute, because I do not want anybody thinking I am dumping on her. Claressa Shields is one of one, family. She is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. She is a multi-division world champion. She has done for women's boxing what Serena Williams did for tennis. She is a Flint, Michigan legend. She is a national treasure. And she deserved better. She deserved better than this man. She deserved better than this story. She deserved a partner who could match her ambition, not someone who was quietly trying to skateboard on her career while telling the world he was helping to steer. And Remy Ma, say what you want about her delivery, say what you want about her tone, say what you want about how loud she was, Remy Ma warned her. Repeatedly. Publicly. Personally. And Remy Ma did it not because Remy Ma was jealous. Remy Ma did it because Remy Ma had already lived the exact ending Claressa Shields is now stepping into, and Remy Ma did not want another woman to have to bury the same body twice. That is not bitterness, sweetheart. That is sisterhood delivered in an unfamiliar accent. That is love that shows up as warning because the messenger has already been where you are going. And the women in the comments who understood Remy Ma from day one, I see you. You have been trying to say this for a year. You were called every name in the book for defending a woman the internet decided to make a punchline. Well, sweetheart, the wait is over. The prophecy landed. And you were right the entire time. Take the vindication and hold it close, because vindication is the only thing on this earth that never has to be justified twice. So here we are. Confident interview. Baby plans. A future being built out loud in front of millions. 24 hours later, the cheating rumors are everywhere. Remy Ma's warnings are being replayed as prophecy instead of pettiness. Behind closed doors, Papoose was allegedly calling Claressa Shields the exact opposite of what he was posting about her. The gambling pattern is confirmed. The younger woman's name is circulating in whispers. And the same cycle is running the same way with different women for years. 2 questions for you. Number 1. Claressa Shields called Remy Ma jealous every single time Remy Ma opened her mouth. Now that the rumors are dropping, do you think Claressa Shields regrets not listening, even a little bit? Do you think, in the quiet hours of her own house, she is replaying Remy Ma's words and finally hearing them differently? Number 2. If there really is a younger woman already in the picture, if the whispers are accurate, does that finally change how you see everything Remy Ma was trying to warn her about? Or are you still in the camp that says Remy Ma was just a woman scorned with a microphone? Drop your answer below. I read every comment. I reply to the ones that make me pause. In the next video, I am going to break down the timeline of Papoose's alleged new interest, who she is, where she came from, and why she conveniently entered the frame right before the interview aired. You do not want to miss it. Because if the whispers are correct, family, the timeline of the new woman lines up with the timeline of the interview in a way that is going to make everyone rewind and gasp all over again. Was this Claressa Shields' wake-up call, cousin, or was this her breaking point? Was Remy Ma the villain the internet spent a year making her out to be, or was Remy Ma the messenger everybody was too proud to hear? And when Claressa Shields sits down for her next interview, and she will sit down, because she is Claressa Shields, and Claressa Shields does not run from a microphone, what version of this story is she going to tell? I have a theory. I think Claressa Shields is going to say very little at first. I think Claressa Shields is going to disappear from social media for a stretch. I think Claressa Shields is going to train. And I think, when Claressa Shields returns, the version of her that returns is going to be quieter, sharper, colder, and infinitely less interested in performing love for a public audience. Because the woman who walks out of a betrayal like this one is never the same woman who walked in. Stay ready. Because when she talks, sweetheart, the whole internet is going to be listening again. And this time, we are going to be listening for what she does not say just as loudly as we listen for what she does. Silence, family, is its own kind of sentence. And Claressa Shields, when she chooses her next silence, is going to be saying more than most people say in a full-length interview. And Remy Ma, I want to say this on the record, because it matters. Remy Ma, if you are hearing this, sweetheart, we owe you an apology. Not just from Claressa Shields. From all of us. From every timeline that clowned you. From every comment section that called you bitter. From every podcast that clipped 10 seconds of your pain and called it entertainment. You told the truth in a room full of people paid to disbelieve you. You held the line. You held the receipts. You held your ground. Remy Ma, you were right. You were right the whole time. Papoose, if you are watching, and you probably are, because men like you are always watching, this next chapter is on you. You can double down. You can play the victim. You can drop another freestyle blaming the industry, blaming your exes, blaming the algorithm. But the rest of the culture is done with the performance. The rest of the culture has seen the receipts. The rest of the culture has watched 2 brilliant women be dragged publicly for a fire you lit privately. And no amount of studio time is going to wrap you out of that. Claressa Shields, one last note to you, champ, from somebody who has been rooting for you since before you were a household name. Take the time. Take all of it. Do not rush to the microphone. Do not rush to the podcast. Do not rush to the response. Rest. Heal. Rebuild. And when you are ready, really ready, come back with the whole story. Because the truth, sweetheart, is the only thing that is going to give you your name back on your own terms. I will see you in the next one. Keep your cup full. Keep your eyes open. And keep your heart guarded, family. Because the loudest warnings, cousin, are almost always the ones we ignore. And the ones we ignore, sweetheart, are almost always the ones we live to regret. That is the tea, family. That is where we are. That is the story. I will pour again soon.